Nico had always been a simple man. His life was shaped by flour, water, and the warmth of an oven. He was the youngest son of a humble baker, though he had never known his parents. When he was just a child, a cruel fever had swept through the village, taking both his mother and father from him. He was taken in by the old baker, Master Elias, and his wife, Agatha, who raised him with love and care. They had no children of their own, and so Nico became their apprentice, their family. The village was small, surrounded by golden fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. There were no grand castles here, no bustling city streets. Instead, there was peace, simplicity, and the sweet smell of fresh bread. The townspeople adored Nico. He was kind to everyone, always willing to lend a hand or share a smile, and his bread was unlike anything they had ever tasted. It was soft, golden, and warm, with a delicate aroma that could make even the coldest of hearts feel comforted. Nico loved his work. Each morning, he would wake before dawn, helping Master Elias mix the dough and bake the bread. Agatha, with her kind eyes and warm hands, would prepare the jam and fresh butter that they would serve with the bread. It was a peaceful life, one that Nico had come to cherish. Yet, there was a part of him that always wondered about the world beyond the village. He often found himself gazing out at the horizon, wondering what lay beyond the endless fields and the winding river. Sometimes, the villagers would speak of the grand royal palace that stood far to the south, and the stories they told about the rulers, the princes, and the noble families who lived there. But for Nico, these were just tales, stories that didn't seem to concern a simple baker like him. One day, as Nico was making his daily delivery of bread to the royal palace, something unexpected happened. While walking through the grand gates, he encountered a young boy. The boy was not much older than Nico had been when he first came to the village. His clothes were plain, and he moved with an air of quiet dignity. But there was something in his eyes that caught Nico's attention. "Hello," Nico said, offering the boy a warm smile. "I'm Nico, the baker from the village. I've brought fresh bread for the palace." The boy looked up at Nico with a pair of dark eyes, almost as if he had been lost in thought. His face was serious, but there was an undeniable sadness in his gaze. Nico was used to seeing all kinds of people, but there was something about this boy that stood out. "I'm Aaron," the boy replied softly. "I work here." Nico nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Aaron than what he let on. The boy seemed so out of place among the bustling servants and grand halls of the palace. Nico noticed that the guards treated him with more care than they did the other servants, as if they were keeping a secret. But what could it be? Who was this boy? The days passed, and Nico continued to deliver bread to the palace. Each time he arrived, he would seek out Aaron. Though the boy was quiet, he always smiled when Nico handed him fresh bread. They began to talk more, and slowly, a bond began to form between them. "Do you like working in the palace?" Nico asked one day as he handed Aaron a loaf of warm bread. Aaron looked at the bread, his fingers brushing against the warm crust. "It's not a bad job," he said, his voice soft, but with a hint of something deeper, a longing, perhaps. "But I don't belong here." Nico raised an eyebrow, surprised by the words. "What do you mean?" Aaron hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just here to keep quiet, to be unseen." The words struck Nico like a bolt of lightning. There was something off about this place, he thought. The palace, for all its grandeur, seemed like a place that hid secrets, and Aaron seemed to be one of those secrets. As the weeks passed, Nico and Aaron grew closer. They would often talk while Aaron worked, sharing stories of their childhoods, their dreams, and their fears. Aaron's sadness lingered, but there was a quiet strength to him that Nico admired. And in return, Nico's kindness seemed to bring a little light into Aaron's life. It was as though, for a brief moment each day, the weight on Aaron's shoulders was a little lighter. One afternoon, as Nico prepared to leave the palace, he saw Aaron staring out of a window, looking at the wide fields beyond the palace walls. "What's on your mind?" Nico asked, approaching him gently. Aaron turned to face him. There was something in his expression, something almost pleading, but he said nothing. He simply shook his head and smiled faintly. "It's nothing," he murmured. But Nico knew better. There was more to Aaron than met the eye, and he was determined to find out what it was. Nico's suspicions about Aaron grew with each passing day. He noticed how the palace guards seemed to treat Aaron with an unusual amount of respect. They would stand straighter when he passed, and some of them even greeted him with a bow. But why? Aaron was just a servant, wasn't he? One evening, as Nico was delivering bread to the royal kitchens, he overheard a conversation between two noblemen in a nearby hallway. He paused, hoping they wouldn't notice him, but their words cut through the air like a blade. "He can't keep this secret much longer," one of the men said in a low voice. "The boy is the last of the noble bloodline. If he is found, the Lord will lose his power." The other man responded quietly, "You know what needs to be done. No one can know the truth about Aaron." Nico's heart raced. The boy, Aaron, was not just any servant. He was someone important, someone with a secret that could change everything. Nico knew he had to find out more. But what did it all mean? And why had Aron been hidden away in the palace as a mere servant? As Nico returned to the village that evening, his mind was filled with questions. But one thing was certain. He could not let his friend, Aron, remain in the shadows. He would do whatever it took to uncover the truth. The days passed, and Nico couldn't stop thinking about the conversation he had overheard. He had spent a long time trying to understand what it all meant, but the more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Aron was no ordinary servant. He had to be someone important. But who? Nico decided to visit the palace again the following day, though this time with a different purpose. He wasn't just delivering bread now. He was searching for answers. He needed to learn more about Aron's past. That afternoon, when Nico arrived at the palace, he found Aron alone in the kitchen, preparing some food. There was no one else around. The kitchen staff were busy elsewhere, and it was the perfect moment to ask. "Aron," Nico began quietly, stepping closer to him. "I heard something today. Something I think you need to know." Aron looked up from his work, his face instantly serious. He wiped his hands on a cloth, then looked at Nico with a curious yet cautious expression. "What did you hear?" Nico hesitated for a moment. The words felt heavy in his mouth. "I overheard two noblemen talking. They said something about you, about your past. They said you were important." Aron's face grew pale. His eyes widened for a brief second before he quickly masked his surprise. He lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. "I was hoping you wouldn't find out, but it's true. I am not just a servant here." Nico could hardly believe what he was hearing. He took a step closer, his heart racing. "What do you mean? Who are you really?" Aron looked around to make sure no one was listening before speaking. "I am Aron, the son of Lord Gavin's brother. My real name is Arianos. I was once the heir to the throne. But after my father's death, my uncle, Lord Gavin, took over the kingdom. He wanted to keep the throne for himself, so he hid me away, raised me as a servant, and kept the truth from everyone." Nico's eyes widened. He had never suspected this. Aron, the quiet boy who had seemed so out of place in the palace, was the lost prince, the rightful heir to the throne. Nico felt a surge of both excitement and fear. This was big. This was dangerous. Aron continued, his voice soft but steady. "Lord Gavin doesn't want anyone to know the truth. If the people discovered I was the true heir, he would lose everything. That's why he keeps me hidden." Nico's mind raced. He had to help Aron. The boy, no, the prince, deserved to be on the throne. He deserved to live freely, without fear or secrecy. But how could he possibly fight against Lord Gavin, a man with so much power? "I'll help you, Aron," Nico said. his voice firm with determination. "We'll find a way. We'll make sure the people know the truth." Aaron looked at Nico, a glimmer of hope in his eyes for the first time. "Thank you, Nico, but we must be careful. Lord Gavin has eyes everywhere. If he finds out what we're planning, it could mean trouble for both of us." Nico nodded. "I understand. But we can't let him keep ruling forever. You're the true king. You deserve to be on the throne." Nico knew that helping Aaron wouldn't be easy. Lord Gavin was a powerful man, and anyone who dared to challenge him would face grave consequences. But Nico also knew that if they didn't act soon, nothing would change. Aaron couldn't live his life as a servant forever. Nico began thinking about how to gather support. He couldn't do this alone. The villagers trusted him, and many of the workers at the palace had already shown their respect for him. If he could convince them to join the cause, maybe, just maybe, they could stand up to Lord Gavin together. The first person Nico approached was Agatha, his mother figure and mentor. She had always been wise and caring, and he trusted her judgment more than anyone else. "Agatha," Nico said one evening as they sat in the small kitchen of their bakery, "I need your advice on something important. There's a secret at the palace, one that could change everything. Aaron, he's not just a servant. He's the rightful heir to the throne. His uncle, Lord Gavin, has kept him hidden away." Agatha looked at him, her brow furrowed in concern. "The true heir? That's dangerous knowledge, Nico. If people find out, Lord Gavin won't let anyone speak of it." "I know," Nico replied, his voice serious. "But we can't let Aaron stay hidden any longer. We have to tell the people, and we need to find a way to support him." Agatha thought for a moment. "You're right, but you must be careful. People are loyal to Lord Gavin, and they might not be willing to turn against him." Nico nodded. "I understand, but I believe the people deserve to know the truth. I'll go to the other villages. I'll speak to the workers at the palace. We can't be afraid anymore." Agatha gave him a small, proud smile. "Then I will stand by you, Nico. If you truly believe this is the right thing to do, then you have my support. But be careful. And remember, the people may follow you, but only if you are brave enough to lead them." Now, from this point, the story will be continued in the next part.